Hi, and welcome to our webinar on the UK Retail X 2020 Growth 2000 reports. I'm Paul Skeldon. I'm the editor of Internet Retailing, and I specialise in the G2K part of the website, which looks at the 2000 fastest growing online retailers in the UK outside of our top 500 that we also look at in a separate report. We're talking today through the latest issue of the report, which has been out for a couple of weeks now, which assesses where those retailers are at in terms of growing, what their growth strategies are, and in particular today we're focusing in on how delivery plays a key role therein. I'm joined by Duncan Licence, who's VP of Product and Partnership at Metapack, and by Cheney Cartwright, who's Senior Account Manager at Amazon Shipping. We'll be hearing from Duncan and Cheney shortly, who will be talking through some of the things that Amazon Shipping do and what Metapack do. And then we should be having a discussion around where the role of delivery and returns and logistics within growth, and how that can help smaller retailers in particular grow and hopefully become members of the top 500. I'm going to first of all start by going through some of the key findings from the report. There's obviously an awful lot more in there than what I can do justice to in a few short slides, but it should give you a flavour of what is covered, what sort of things we found this year, how that differs particularly from the 2019 report, because obviously the market has changed so colossally dramatically in those few short months that it is almost like year zero in 2020. And also have a little look ahead to what we might see in 2021. So obviously don't place any bets based on what I say, because everything really is in a state of flux, as all of you retailers out there are well aware. So first of all, what we've been looking at in the report are the 2000 fastest growing companies by revenue outside of the top 500 from an e-commerce point of view. And as we can see there's a lot of detail in that slide. It's just really illustrative of the fact that we're looking at accessories, fashion, homewares as being the dominant sort of sectors currently. I don't think that's a surprise with people being stuck at home. I mean, fashion, I think, is probably much more now kind of leisure wear and that sort of thing rather than high fashion, but it's things people can consume at home. They're dominating the top 500 currently. Consumer electronics also, again, I think probably a lot of people having to buy a new laptop, webcam backgrounds, all those kind of things to help them in the Zoom world that we now live in. And other indoor categories are also quite prominent in that list. I think we're going to see some more of that in 2021 also, because we're all still stuck at home for the foreseeable future. As to what the retailers actually do, they predominantly run their own sites, or are brands running their own sites, and it marks a clear path to commerce in setting up a transactional site and growing from there organically, is what these retailers tend to do. Marketplaces are part of this, but they're quite low, surprisingly. I expect that more marketplace traction will happen for a lot of these G2K retailers. I think we might see more niche marketplaces appearing within the G2K category as we go forward through the years, because there is a sort of consumer shift towards marketplace shopping. They're sort of like the online equivalent of what department stores used to be. They're quite easy to get hold of everything you're looking for, particularly for a cohort of people who are kind of new to shopping in an e-commerce way. So that's a snapshot there of the traffic and how it's sort of spread between brands and retailers and marketplaces. Obviously, COVID-19 has reshaped the retail landscape quite dramatically. In the UK, US, Germany and France, 40% of consumers have tried new brands or made purchases from new retailers between March and June in 2020. I mean, I think that's sort of fairly indicative of what happens across the entire year. Loyalty is vulnerable as a result, I think. Many of these people are new to it, so aren't particularly loyal to particular online sites. They might be to brands, but I think the fact that there is so much choice out there, and people are driven by price and by convenience, which is a delivery plays a key part in making it sort of a convenient purchase, that people are much less likely to stick with brands they know as much as they used to. The COVID pandemic has also ushered in a long peak, which has forced the retailers to act like they do at the peak time of year around Christmas, but pretty much all year. This sort of wrapped up in sort of March when everything shut, and they've been sort of pretty much on high alert ever since, and frantically trying to cope with that. And from a delivery point of view, that's clearly sort of given them a challenge in terms of trying to make sure they can get those deliveries out and maintain that convenience that gives them brand differentiation, which is something we'll come to in our discussion a bit later on. The key things we looked at in terms of growth sort of vectors for these companies in the report are how easy and well they are at being discovered, what their delivery speeds are like, how mobile they've become, because obviously a lot of the new consumers are using mobile, and how they're using social media, because that's also now becoming quite prevalent as a way of discovering and also as a way of shopping. So that's some of the key things there. So the growth performance that we've seen, that rather nice sort of fluid diagram there on the left, shows sort of how we've grown between 2019 and 2020 around those four vectors. And from that, really, sort of the key thing that comes out is that they've really concentrated on being discovered, which is, I think, makes perfect sense because it's a very competitive market. You've got to get yourself found, and also on delivery. Mobile, social, both grown, both quite important, but it's delivery and discovery that have come out as the sort of key growth drivers, and that's sort of driven growth quite considerably, as you can see on the right. It's up 26%, where it's up 13% in the previous year. The performance by sector is fairly uniform across all of those sectors. They've all seen growth, pretty much, some more than others. I think that's sort of testament really to the fact that everything was shut pretty much all the time, on and off, and so, you know, if you needed to buy something, you had to go online and you had to buy it there. So that's sort of driven more uniform growth across the market. Looking quickly at those four metrics, find, which is the sort of discoverability, if you will, of those retailers, is something that's key. It's one of the biggest growth parts of it. We've seen more than half of them doing product ratings, less so in fashion and jewelry, but more so in all the others. Many of them have increased their find ability because they need to be found, and the traders offering wish lists has also gone up. There's some of the key things people have done to drive discoverability. Delivery, collection and returns, almost as important to customers as price. People are still driven by trying to get it as cheaply as possible, but they also want it often as quickly as possible or as flexibly as possible, which is putting delivery as a key sort of differentiator for many brands. Returns also, the ease of return, I think, is also now more important than it has been, because, you know, with everything being bought online, there are more returns, and they've had to up their game in all those areas. I mean, this is a bit more of a complicated chart to get through, but it shows really kind of how each of the categories that we looked at have performed in terms of offering things like click and collect, next day delivery, and so on. And next day delivery is now highly prevalent with even these smaller retailers. It's becoming sort of the norm. We also found the sort of order value around sort of where next day delivery kicks in, and how that's changed, and that's quite an important distinction. I think we've seen this move to next day delivery sort of highlights how important delivery is to retailers looking to differentiate themselves in a highly competitive market. Mobile is the third of our vectors. It's been an explosion in digital use of mobile. People tend to pick up their phone now to do their shopping. Apps and optimized websites are almost standard for many retailers. Most of the G2K have them, and are starting to see some traction from them. It's not by any means ubiquitous, which is surprising. I mean, and I think that's sort of one of the things that maybe drags some of these smaller retailers back, is that they don't fully appreciate that you have to have mobile. It's not an option anymore. And the other sort of side to mobile is social media use. It's becoming much more important in how brands get discovered, how they publicize themselves, how they use influencers to drive their sort of brand awareness. And equally, that you're starting to see that sort of people like Instagram, YouTube even, are becoming shoppable. And I think that sort of ties us back neatly into where we started with the sort of discoverability side of things, in that social media offers the potential for many, particularly smaller brands, to be able to offer not just a way of being found and to push out their message and to be influencers, but to then also be shoppable. And that's quite a powerful thing. I think that's something we're going to see a lot more of in 2021. We're going to see that there, as I said. We're going to see more uses of marketplaces, as I said near the beginning. I think they're becoming a much more convenient way for many people to shop. And we're going to see a growing battle on delivery, much faster, more flexible. I think people want control over it. I think particularly as lockdowns and things start to be eased, as we shall hopefully be experiencing in the coming weeks, they might not necessarily now be at home. So they might want it redirected. So things like that are quite important. And I think greater collection options are also going to be a big thing in 2021. And I think refining the returns principle is also going to be something that needs to be worked on. I think we're also going to see a lot of focus on sustainability and sort of eco-friendliness in delivery, because that's increasingly becoming a consumer concern. So that's a whistle-stop tour through some of the key findings of the Growth 2000. We should have a bit of a discussion about this afterwards, but I'm going to invite now Cheney from Amazon Shipping. Cheney, fulfillment is becoming an increasingly important competitive lever for any retail business, as I said, and I'm hoping that you can give us some insights into how customer behaviour and expectations have shifted in the year we've just been through, and how you can better position to take advantage of these innovations across the first, middle, and last mile of delivery.
Sure can. Thanks, Paul, for the intro. So yeah, we've put together a couple of slides today that will help illustrate that. Before I start, thanks for having me. My name's Cheney Cartwright. I'm one of the commercial leads at Amazon Shipping. And yes, here to talk with you today about Amazon Shipping, and as you say, some of the innovations required across first, middle, and last mile to give the best possible customer experience. So you might be thinking, Amazon already ships for their own sellers, so what's new? So you're right, we do ship for sellers, and we have been doing it on the Amazon Marketplace for many years. But more recently, we've made our experience, expertise, and innovation in next day delivery available to everyone, external shippers as well. So in fact, over peak of last year, we were proudly servicing such clients as John Lewis, The White Company, Holland & Barrett, Photobox, and many other shippers who ship parcels directly with Amazon Shipping, having serviced them off the Amazon Marketplace itself. So a real big change for us last year. Amazon Shipping is a next day delivery service that can pick up your parcels 7 days a week and deliver them to your customers. Hassle-free, cost-effective for online retailers all over the UK, while providing a fast delivery service to their recipients throughout the country. So through our experience as both a retailer and a logistics provider, we know what it's like to be on both sides of the fence. So we've used some of this insight to design a service that is efficient, robust enough to meet the highest demands that we know customers want from a delivery experience. Next slide, please.
Yeah, interesting. So what delivery opportunities do you think there are for Growth 2000 companies?
Yes, so the UK is ahead of the rest of Europe in e-commerce adoption. And we know that UK customers in particular have become accustomed to fast delivery experiences. And yet 32% of UK retailers still don't offer a next day delivery service. With such a large proportion of the market segment still yet to react to these changes in behaviors from customers, the opportunity is undeniable and drives the question that we find our customers asking all the time, which is, why wait? There's a huge opportunity now to act early in the year and set up delivery options for customers which can provide a best-in-class delivery experience.
Excellent. So what do you consider to be the key factors in deciding whether to offer a next day delivery service?
Yeah, so this is a super interesting one. So there are three key stages which customers go through before making a purchasing decision. And offering a fast, efficient delivery service is crucial actually across all three of those stages. So first, in the consideration stage, we can see that the initial challenge of attracting a customer's interest relies on having available delivery options. So 66% of customers choose a retailer with more delivery choices than others, and 91% choose a retailer with fast delivery as their preferred retailer to visit. Second, across conversion. So when converting sales, a 2018 study from IMRG showed that 50% of shoppers do not complete an order due to insufficient delivery options. With cost, speed, certainty, and the availability of delivery options that can cater for those customers as being the biggest driver of that conversion rate shortfall. And indeed, when combined with figures from research conducted by Royal Mail, revealing that 70% of shoppers would not return to store after abandoning that basket, these figures paint a pretty clear picture. The chance to offer the right customer experience when it comes to shipping is absolutely key. And finally, with 96% of customers willing to return following a positive delivery experience, you can see just how important an efficient next day delivery service can be when encouraging loyalty and retention of those customers. And conversely, you can actually see that 45% of customers are unlikely to return after a negative delivery experience. So as I say, delivery tends to underpin all three of those key stages of a customer's journey.
Interesting. But how important is sustainability?
So sustainability is obviously incredibly important to us at Amazon. So we know that consumer awareness of sustainability will continue to grow, and rightfully so. And so it's vital that we provide delivery solutions that match our ambitions for the planet. So in terms of our goals, Amazon aims to be 100% net zero carbon by 2040, 1 decade ahead of the Paris Agreement. And these big ambitions mean big commitments. So we're investing in wind, solar, and we have a goal of reaching 100% renewable energy across our entire operations by 2025. And as part of this overall target, our goal is to deliver 50% of shipments with net zero carbon by 2030. And we're already making some great progress. We have more than 60 Amazon fulfillment facilities across the globe, getting 80% of their energy from on-site solar panels. And finally, our shipment zero orders will be delivered by electric bikes and three-wheelers, or a vehicle that is 100% battery, electric, or hydrogen fueled. Next slide, please. And then finally, so meeting customer demand would not be possible without rapid investments into innovation. We want to set a new benchmark for the industry. And in order to do that, we've invested in every step of the journey, from ordering right through to the final mile customer experience. All throughout the middle mile operation, we continue to drive towards time efficiencies, cost efficiencies, and detecting exceptions before they can have an impact. We use innovations such as routing algorithms, machine learning, connected assets, all to help facilitate the best possible recipient experience for our customers. We use Bluetooth beacons to enable precise package level tracking. We use risk-aware routing to help us avoid surprises and maintain predictability within our network. And zero-click booking also ensures immediate action when it's required on our side, minimizing delays for those packages. We're also continuously investing in our network infrastructure by building more sort nodes, delivery centers all around the UK, ensuring we always have the capacity to service our retailers and meet customer demand. So that's everything from me and from Amazon Shipping. I hope some of that Q&A we've covered today has been useful. If you're looking to find out more, on the next slide, you'll be able to see you can register your interest in partnering with Amazon Shipping by visiting shipping.amazon.co.uk, and one of our team is then able to get in touch and pick up any further questions in more detail. Thanks.
So great stuff. Thank you very much, Jane. It's really interesting. So, Duncan, you've been sitting very patiently there while we've rattled through all of those things. Before we get into sort of having a proper discussion about this, tell us a bit about yourself and about MetaPack and what you guys do.
Thanks, Paul, and thanks, Cheney. I love hearing the stats that you're putting out around customer loyalty and conversion. Those are things that we at MetaPack have talked about a lot about. So I feel like I'm on the right podcast or the right webinar. At MetaPack, we work with 500 of the world's largest retailers and brands, where we help them improve their delivery experience, drive conversion in the checkout. We help them control their lifetime value by delivering parcels or giving them access to carriers, the world's largest carrier library, and finally helping them with the post-ship experience. We work with retailers and brands, small and large, companies like Louis Vuitton, Adidas, ASOS, and many others, where we delivered somewhere in the region of 700 million parcels last year to pretty much every country on the planet. At MetaPack, we have broadly 6 products. We have our delivery options product, which really helps increase conversion and present delivery choice in the checkout, giving consumers that array of choice that Paul talked about in his data, but also Cheney. We have a single API that connects our customers to almost 500 of the world's largest parcel carriers, all via a single API. Our tracking and post-ship experience allows you to present your customer experience, your journey, in your own branding, and also to control your cost to serve. Our returns proposition, again, helps take friction out of returns and make sure that you can recover the costs of returns. And then we have a suite of intelligence and support products that allow you to understand what's going on and to address issues or improve your capability. If we have a look at the next slide, what we see is a very brief overview of the value that we help create around attracting, converting, and retaining customers. We present delivery choice in the checkout, and that reduces basket abandonment and increases conversion. We help improve that post-ship experience so that consumers get a slick, branded post-ship experience. We help you make accurate delivery promises in the checkout and on the product page so that your consumers know what they're going to get. And again, that basket abandonment that Cheney talked about earlier is never really a problem. And then finally, we help you understand what's going on, what decisions your consumers are making, what decisions your carriers are making, how that performance of that looks, so that you can make the right decisions. If you move to the next slide, what you see is how we also help our customers control their cost to serve and reduce the tech complexity. We have a single API that lets you to integrate to all of those carriers. We help you automate and scale your shipping operations, whether it's from one warehouse or one warehouse and 10 stores or 20 warehouses throughout the world. We have the scalability and availability of our platform is second to none. And then we help you understand where your operation is going, what the performance of your operation looks like, the performance of your carriers, and help you, as I said earlier, improve that. And then some data, a report that we've just completed, the data we've got out with RetailX guys, broadly supports some of the points that Paul and Cheney made before. The massive boost in e-commerce that we've seen in 2020 is set to continue. Consumers tell us that whilst they do look forward to returning to stores, they will continue to shop online in a way that maybe they would never have done had it not been for COVID. 81% of consumers tell us that they had a terrible delivery experience in 2020. So that massive uptick in deliveries and e-commerce was also somewhat pared back by less good service. And Cheney's point, a lot of customers will not return if they have a poor delivery experience. And so figuring out how to meet those expectations of consumers is really important. And then finally on sustainability, this is the kind of the mega trend that I think we'll be hearing a lot about for the next year, but probably the next 5 or 10 years, as everyone figures out what this means and really figures out how to navigate what is a tricky area, but a crucially important one.
Great stuff, excellent. So yeah, some really interesting things there. You do offer quite a lot of solutions to retailers in terms of delivery. It's a cheeky question, but what's the sort of uptake been of these services? Are more people coming to you saying we really need to sort out our delivery help?
I think I'd group it into 2 buckets. The first one is really early on in the COVID period, the first half of last year, pretty much everyone was trying to figure out how to build operational resilience. So that was moving to new carriers or moving volume from one warehouse to another one, adding carriers where the carriers they were loyal to were sometimes struggling with this huge increase in volume. We saw a massive uptick in our ship from store solutions, where people were looking to give stores that were closed the ability to ship orders. They had trapped inventory, and they were very keen to help meet customers' expectations. And finally, that insight that delivery intelligence I've talked about, understanding what was going on, where the issues were. So the first bucket really around operational resilience. The second half of last year was subtly different. As people had figured out how to navigate that operational resilience problem, their mind moved on to improving service and controlling costs. This massive surge in e-commerce had an entirely different cost profile to what many of them were used to. And so the adoption of many of the self-service products, delivery tracker, we had a particular customer who had, I think they had a 4-week backlog of orders. They couldn't ship fast enough. And as a result, their contact center was totally overwhelmed with people phoning up, asking where their order is. And so introducing things like Delivery Tracker, the self-service tracking portal, and also the returns products allowed them to continue to serve their customers without necessarily having to deal with this massive onslaught into customer services or in the warehouse. So I think those two buckets were really where we saw a lot of activity.
Yeah, it's very important that the sort of side of the customer service thing that often gets overlooked, isn't it? That you can up your e-commerce sort of shipping rates and sell more stuff, but you're going to get more problems or more calls, and you have to be able to handle all that. So with that sort of in mind, delivery is clearly a sort of competitive advantage in this sort of the very competitive e-commerce landscape. Can smaller businesses like the G2K companies, can they compete on delivery with the massive retail brands and with the likes of Amazon or all the huge companies that we deal with in the top 500? Can these smaller companies ever manage to sort of compete with them delivery wise?
I think so. I think now more than ever before. Cheney's stat from his section where he said 32% of UK's retailers don't offer a next day service is really stuck in my mind as an example. Everyone can offer a next day service. And so it's a question of figuring out what are the problems to solve. How do you navigate them in a way that controls that cost to serve, that doesn't cost you more than maybe you wanted to? I always start with the hygiene on this. Retailers absolutely have to nail taking the friction out of the buying and returning experience. How they help their consumers find the product they want, put it in a basket, get that delivery choice that they want, and then if they choose to return it, all with as little friction as possible is so important. And the technology that's available today, some of Metapack's solutions, but those offered by carriers like Amazon really help people deliver that sort of stuff. It's absolutely accessible to pretty much any retailer now. Giving people choice, giving consumers choice around the delivery options, and then making sure you meet those promises is absolutely critical. I would argue, I'd go so far as to say that's both hygiene and differentiator, because so few people do it. A third of people don't offer a next day, but a third, there's another whole cohort of people who don't offer, I don't know, pickup points or locker boxes or, weekend delivery or whatever the case may be. And those are things that consumers increasingly just expect and are readily available to retailers if they choose to implement them. And then finally, the mistake we come across all the time is that people don't consider the whole delivery experience. The parcel's left my warehouse, not my problem anymore. Unfortunately, consumers don't see it that way. The fact that the delivery driver arrives, in a DPD livery or an Amazon livery is kind of neither here nor there. It's still an order from that retailer. And consumers really care about that whole experience. And I'd urge retailers to do the same.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's a good point you made just prior to that about expecting collection points and those sorts of things, because our research sort of shows that a lot of the G2K companies are now getting on board with the idea of next day delivery, but click and collect or collection points and those sorts of things still very far down on the list. And that's are they particularly difficult to implement?
I think not particularly, no. I think it requires you to go and have a look at how your best examples do it, and there's lots of good ones out there. You have to make some choices around who you're going to work with. Sometimes it's allied to the specific carrier that you're working with. You can't get if you don't work with Hermes, you can't present Hermes parcel points, for example. And some of them are agnostic. We work with the likes of, say, maybe InPost, who offer a locker box solution, but they accept deliveries from lots of different carriers. And so I think it's about figuring out what you want to offer, what the proposition you want to create is, and then working hard to figure out how to get there. In terms of the technology, these things are readily available. Whether it's from the digital commerce platform you use, or if you want a slightly more sophisticated solution that maybe is available for those guys out the box, the Metapack delivery options product gives you one API and it gives you access to every location provider pretty much on the planet. I think we've got 400,000 locations now. It just requires a retailer to want to go and solve that problem and to figure out how they want to do it.
Do you think, because a lot of these retailers face a number of challenges, Brexit for many UK retailers, the coronavirus, obviously, which is probably going to be an ongoing problem, hopefully one that tails off as the years go by, but right now it's very much front and centre. Do they really how important is delivery in that, do you think? Do you think it should be very high up their sort of agenda of priorities?
I think now more so than ever. If you look at the last year, we saw in the UK market, we saw e-commerce reach somewhere between 30 and 35% of all retail. It started the year at about 20%. And so when you see e-commerce change and the data that we see from when we do our research is customers telling us that they're going to continue with that behavior, delivery is such an important aspect of that. I would argue for most consumers, the holy grail is product and price, and everyone focuses on that, and then it's positioning. I actually think delivery, unfortunately, doesn't start with a P, otherwise it would solve for that marketing thing. But I think delivery is probably a close follower on product and price. Consumers care about product and they care about price, but they care deeply about delivery and the choice being convenient and meeting their expectations. And so I think it's an absolute necessity for any retailer, be they a pure play online retailer or a retailer that has stores with an online presence as well. Everyone has to get delivery right. And I think it's possible.
I think so. So what sort of things should our G2K retailers who are listening be looking at in terms of trying to sort of build a delivery network? What are the things they should be sort of prioritizing?
I think it's really difficult. There's a huge amount of choice out there. There are endless number of pickup points, parcel carriers. There's lots of places you could ship from. You could ship from store. You could ship from your warehouse. You could ship from a dropship vendor or a manufacturer. Figuring out what the right combination is for your business there's unfortunately no one size fits all solution. I would always encourage people to start with the market. What is the market doing? What are your best? What's your favorite experiences doing? What are your competitors doing? And then going into your consumers, looking at your consumers, talking to them, engaging them, understanding what their preferences are. Far too often we see data that says, millennials like this, or the Gen X people like that. But the crazy thing about COVID is we've seen the older demographic adopt e-commerce in a way that they'd not previously done. And that came with a whole tranche of new expectations. So really engaging with your customer and understanding what they want and giving it to them is super important. And then finally, thinking about your product set. What you ship is a really important part of the problem. If you're shipping just clothing, you have to solve the problem in one way. And a locker box solution or a pickup point is brilliant. If you're shipping furniture, you have to solve this problem very differently. And the sorts of services that you add onto that, whether it's removal or installation or that kind of wraparound, changes dramatically depending on what your product set is.
Great. I have visions of someone trying to cram a settee back into a locker box outside their local supermarket, but I've yet to see it. You mentioned in your research there that you did about sustainability, and I know that Cheney mentioned sustainability around delivery with what Amazon's doing. That's a key driver, I guess, isn't it? A sort of second tier driver for what consumers now want. They want excellent delivery. They want it when they want it, but they also want it now to come, in a non-pollutive lorry. Is that something that you're working towards?
We do. We've done a lot of research in sustainability over the last 12 to 18 months. And I think the most interesting takeaway for me is consumers want fast free delivery. So they want a next day free delivery, but they also want to save the planet. The challenge, of course, is often those two things are incompatible. But when you dig into the detail with consumers and you really have a conversation with them, and we've surveyed quite a few people on this, what comes out is people actually just want a choice. They want to be able to they want to be given free and fast delivery, but they also want a sustainable delivery choice, even if that means it's going to maybe cost a bit more or take a bit longer to get delivered. And I think giving consumers choice in the checkout and helping them understand the carbon cost or the environmental impact of their deliveries, I think is something that pretty much every retailer, the kind of the emerging ones, but also the mature ones, could do a great deal better. This is obviously not the only issue around sustainability. You've got the sustainability of the product, and you've got sustainability of all the other aspects that come into sustainability. But if we're focusing on delivery, thinking about the environmental aspect of it is so important. One of the things that Metapack has worked with the partner carriers, people like Amazon and many others, is figuring out how to have that conversation, how to surface that data into the checkout so that consumers can make an informed choice. I think it's such an important part of the puzzle. And when we talk to consumers, they want to understand it. They genuinely want to understand the carbon impact. And that doesn't mean to say they're always going to choose the low carbon or the low environmental impact. Sometimes, I'll have forgotten my wife's birthday and I'm still going to choose a next day delivery. But other times I might be more considerate and say, I'm happy to wait because I know it's going to save the planet.
You mentioned there about sort of obviously the sort of sustainability of the product is a key consideration for consumers, as well as the delivery. Do they lump the two things together in their mind, or do you have any sort of sense of whether they view the delivery sustainability and the product sustainability separately?
One of our it's sometimes difficult to separate out the zeitgeist from the PR machine on this. So what do consumers really want versus what do retailers or businesses want to talk about that they can actually talk about? And so the sustainability of the product is something that over the last 2 years has been a really big deal. We've seen a lot of our customers talk to their consumers, to the press, about the sustainability of the product, the manufacturing processes, the chemicals used in those. I don't think consumers have a model to understand this stuff. I think some people are quite forward thinking, and they understand that there's a difference between the environmental impact of the manufacturing and the transport of a product, and others just think of sustainability as this big thing. There's for many people this is an emerging problem, and they're not quite ready to say this is what I care about most. They just know it's important, but they're not sure how or what they should do about it.
Great. And just finally, before we wrap up, I'm just going to put you on the spot. What do you think we're going to see in terms of delivery for sort of smaller businesses in 2021? What are some of the sort of other trends do you think we might look out for?
When in doubt, the best thing to do is agree with the editor. I think the point you made earlier, the point you made earlier about pickup points and things like locker boxes growing in popularity, I think is absolutely true. We've already seen that begin to take a real uptick. The work that we've done in that post-purchase space, putting your brand into the post-purchase experience, is something that I think we'll see a lot more focus on from retailers. I don't think many retailers are comfortable with the idea that they offload the brand experience, that delivery experience, to a third-party carrier. And for those who use more than one carrier, as many do, your customer's going to get a very inconsistent experience if you don't put your brand over the top of that. And so I think for me, if I had to put money on it, I'd say it's those two things, more carriers, but with the brand wrap and pickup points.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree. I look forward to looking into that for our next reports in 2021 or for 2021.
Yeah, well, you have me back and tell me how wrong I was.
Well, I would never do that. We'll just discuss sort of what else happened, I think, is probably where we'll go with that. But no, that's really interesting. It's been great stuff in there. It's been really good to hear from you, Duncan, as to what trends you see and what Metapack's up to. It's been really good to hear from you too, Cheney, about what Amazon's doing. Some really interesting stuff there. Always worth seeing what you guys think as to where this is all going. So that's excellent. And hopefully those of you watching have got some insight into what the Growth 2000 companies are doing. Do download the report. There's a lot more in there that takes a lot of these ideas that we've discussed and really goes with a lot more detail and a lot more statistics as to what's actually happening. So if you are a small business, it's a really good read and a great guide. So gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated. Everyone watching and listening, thank you very much for taking the time to listen to us, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.